The death of the 12 apostles of Jesus is a topic that raises many questions and curiosities. After all, how could simple and ordinary men face such extreme fates because of their faith? This video will explore every detail of the last hours of these men who were literally the ones who inherited Jesus' legacy on earth. Get ready to discover stories of courage, unshakable faith, and unimaginable sacrifices. In a world where fast news dominates, these stories make us reflect on the true meaning of dedication and purpose. It is not just a journey through time, it is a journey to understand the depth of the human spirit and the strength of unshakable belief. Let's together explore these stories and see how each apostle left a legacy that still echoes today. Stay until the end and find out how these inspiring lives can transform your own journey of faith and devotion. The legacy of the apostles. The apostles of Jesus left a profound and lasting legacy that resonates to this day. These simple men, chosen to follow the Master, transformed into examples of faith, illuminating the world by reflecting the light of Christ. They became the salt of the earth, preserving and transmitting Jesus' teachings even in the face of relentless persecution. Their stories are a living testimony of divine justice and the power of prayer. By understanding the impact of their lives and deaths, we can see how the Golden Rule guided their actions and how they paved the narrow path for others to follow. The stories of the apostles also show us the power of faith and resilience. They followed the Mosaic Law and Jesus' teachings with unshakable devotion, even when it meant facing martyrdom. Each of them, from Peter to John, went through extreme trials, but their lives and sacrifices continue to inspire generations of disciples. By reflecting on the legacy of the apostles, we can find practical examples of how to live a life dedicated to divine justice and prayer, just as they did. And by doing so, we become part of the spiritual heritage they left behind. The death of Peter. Peter, the fervent apostle, met his final fate in Rome, where he was crucified upside down. This form of crucifixion was his request, as he did not consider himself worthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. Peter's story exemplifies the ultimate sacrifice the apostles were willing to make, all for divine justice and faith in our Father. His death serves as a powerful reminder of what it truly means to be a dedicated disciple. Peter's words echo through the centuries, reminding us that sometimes the narrow path is the hardest, but also the most rewarding. By reflecting on Peter's martyrdom, we can find inspiration for our own lives. His story teaches us the importance of living according to our principles, even in the face of extreme adversity. For those seeking to live a life of faith and devotion, Peter's story is a clear example of how prayer and trust in divine justice can sustain us. And by following his example, we can become the light of the world, illuminating the way for others with the light of Jesus Christ. Andrew. Andrew, Peter's brother, also met a tragic end, being crucified on an X-shaped cross. Known as St. Andrew's Cross, this distinctive form of crucifixion became a symbol of his devotion and sacrifice. Andrew, who was one of the first to follow Jesus and recognize his divinity, became an example of how faith can guide us even in the darkest moments. His death is a testimony to his unwavering commitment to divine justice and the teachings of our Father. Andrew's story reminds us that even in our greatest moments of suffering, we can find strength in prayer and faith. He showed that being a disciple is not just about following Jesus' teachings but also being willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good. For those seeking to live by the Golden Rule, Andrew's life is a shining example of how faith can sustain us. And, like Andrew, we can strive to be the salt of the earth, preserving the values taught to us. James, son of Zebedee. James, son of Zebedee, had the honor, and tragedy, of being the first of the apostles to suffer martyrdom. Executed by order of Herod Agrippa I, James was beheaded in Jerusalem. His death marked the beginning of an era of persecution for Jesus' disciples but also solidified the faith of Christians. James' courage in the face of death shows us the power of divine justice and the strength of prayer. He became a symbol of unwavering faith and absolute dedication to Jesus' teachings. James' example is particularly powerful for those facing difficulties and challenges in their own lives. He teaches us that even in the face of death, we can find strength in our faith and the principles we follow. For those seeking to be the light of the world, James' story offers a clear guide on how to live according to Jesus' teachings. And, by reflecting on his sacrifice, we are inspired to follow the narrow path, knowing that like James, we can make a lasting difference. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave your like. Philip, another of the faithful apostles, met his end in the city of Hierapolis, in Asia Minor. He was crucified just like Jesus, but his faith remained unshakable until the last moment. Philip is remembered for his missionary zeal and spreading Jesus' word. He teaches us that divine justice is achieved not only by what we do but by what we deeply believe. Philip exemplifies the power of prayer and devotion to the Creator, showing that even in our darkest moments, we can find light and purpose. Philip's life reminds us that true sacrifice comes from the heart and soul. He lived his life as a true disciple, spreading Jesus' message and following the Golden Rule. His death in Hierapolis serves as a testimony to the strength and resilience that come from faith. For those seeking to be the salt of the earth, Philip's story offers a clear example of how faith can guide and sustain us, even in the most challenging times. Bartholomew, also known as Nathanael, suffered a terrible fate, being flayed alive before being beheaded. This horrific martyrdom occurred in Armenia, where he was preaching Jesus' word. Bartholomew's story is a testimony to the extreme sacrifice the apostles were willing to make for divine justice and the spread of Jesus' teachings. His unshakable faith and courage in the face of death show the depth of his devotion to the Father. Reflecting on Bartholomew's life and death, we are reminded of the power of prayer and unshakable faith. He exemplifies the true essence of being a disciple, willing to endure the worst adversities for his belief. For those seeking to live by Christian principles, Bartholomew offers a clear example of how faith can sustain and guide us. His story inspires us to be the light of the world, spreading the message of love and divine justice wherever we go. Thomas, often remembered as Doubting Thomas, met his end in India, where he was pierced by a spear. Known for his relentless quest for truth, Thomas took Jesus' message to the far reaches of the known world. His death is a testament to his unwavering dedication to divine justice and the propagation of biblical teachings. Thomas shows us that even those who question can find a clear and illuminated path through faith. Thomas's story is particularly inspiring for those seeking answers and meaning in their lives. He teaches us that doubt can be a path to a deeper and more meaningful faith. For those seeking to follow the Golden Rule and live according to Jesus' teachings, Thomas's life offers a clear example of perseverance and devotion. Reflecting on his death, we are inspired to be better, spreading the message of love and justice wherever we can. Matthew, the tax collector turned apostle, met his end in Ethiopia, where he was stoned to death. His transformation from a hated tax collector to a dedicated follower of Jesus exemplifies the power of redemption and divine justice. Matthew is remembered for his contribution to the gospel, detailing Jesus' teachings and the importance of faith in Christ. His death in Ethiopia is a testament to his unwavering devotion to faith and prayer. Matthew's life teaches us that no one is beyond redemption and that everyone can find a path to divine justice. He shows us that with faith and dedication, we can transform our lives and become what God expects of us. For those seeking to follow biblical teachings, Matthew offers a clear example of how faith can guide and sustain us. Reflecting on his sacrifice, we are inspired to live according to the principles he so diligently followed. James, son of Alphaeus. James, son of Alphaeus, met a tragic end when he was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple in Jerusalem and subsequently stoned. Known for his leadership in the early church, James exemplified divine justice and unwavering faith. His death reminds us of the sacrifice the disciples were willing to make for faith and the propagation of Jesus' teachings. James is a clear example of how prayer and devotion to the Creator can sustain us even in the most extreme adversities. James' story is a powerful lesson in resilience and faith. He teaches us that even when we face seemingly insurmountable challenges, we can find strength in our faith and principles. For those seeking to live by the Golden Rule, the life of James the Less offers a clear example of how faith can guide and sustain us. Reflecting on his sacrifice, we are inspired to follow the narrow path and be the salt of the earth, preserving the values he so diligently defended. Jude Thaddeus. Jude Thaddeus, also known as Thaddeus, met his end brutally, being killed by blows from a club. This apostle is often remembered for his letters, which exhort Christians to persevere in faith and live according to divine justice. The death of Jude Thaddeus is a testament to unwavering dedication to prayer and the teachings of the Father. He shows us that even in the face of extreme violence, faith can sustain and guide us. Jude Thaddeus' story is a powerful reminder that true sacrifice comes from the heart. He teaches us that faith and devotion to divine justice can sustain us even in the darkest moments. For those seeking to live according to Jesus' teachings, Jude Thaddeus offers a clear example of perseverance and faith. Reflecting on his sacrifice, we are inspired to spread the message of love and justice wherever we are. Simon the Zealot. Simon the Zealot met a terrible end, being sawed in half. This apostle is remembered for his zeal and dedication to the Christian faith, even in the face of persecution and death. Simon's story teaches us about the depth of faith and divine justice. He lived his life as a true disciple, spreading Jesus' message and following the Golden Rule with unwavering devotion. The life of Simon the Zealot is a powerful example of how faith can sustain us in times of adversity. He shows us that even in the greatest challenges, we can find strength in prayer and devotion. For those seeking to be the salt of the earth, Simon's life offers a clear example of how faith can guide and sustain us. Reflecting on his sacrifice, we are inspired to follow the narrow path, knowing we can make a lasting difference. Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot is a name synonymous with betrayal, being the apostle who handed Jesus over for 30 pieces of silver. His end was tragic, committing suicide after realizing the gravity of his betrayal. Judas' story reminds us of the dangers of temptation and greed, but also of the need for divine justice. His life and death are a powerful warning of how straying from the path can lead to ruin. Reflecting on Judas Iscariot, we are reminded of the importance of staying on the right path. He teaches us that betrayal and greed can lead us away from divine justice, but also that repentance is crucial. For those seeking to live according to Jesus' teachings, Judas' story serves as a powerful warning. John the Beloved Apostle. John, the beloved apostle, was the only one of the 12 to die of old age. Exiled on the island of Patmos, he wrote the book of Revelation, significantly contributing to the New Testament. John's life is a testimony to divine justice and the power of prayer. He lived a life dedicated to faith and Jesus' teachings, being the author of one of the most well-known books of the Bible. John's story teaches us that faith and devotion can sustain us in any circumstance. He shows us that even in times of difficulty, we can find strength in prayer and divine justice. For those seeking to follow Jesus, John's life offers a clear example of perseverance and faith. Reflecting on his legacy, we are inspired to follow the narrow path, staying close to Jesus even in moments of difficulty. The sacrifice of the apostles and their spiritual legacy. The sacrifices of Jesus' apostles left a profound and lasting spiritual legacy. Each of them, from Peter to John, faced extreme trials, but their lives and deaths continue to inspire generations of disciples. They exemplified divine justice and devotion to Christianity, showing the power of prayer and unshakable faith. Reflecting on their sacrifices, we are inspired to live according to the principles they so diligently followed. The spiritual legacy of the apostles is a source of inspiration and strength for all who seek to live according to Jesus' teachings. They show us that God's power can sustain us in any circumstance and that divine justice is achieved through Jesus' mercy and sacrifice. For those seeking to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, the apostles offer a clear example of how faith can guide and sustain us. Now that you know the sacrifices of Jesus' 12 apostles, it is impossible not to feel inspired to apply these teachings in your own life. How can you be a light to the world and a true disciple in your daily life? Are you ready to live divine justice, follow Jesus' teachings, and embrace the narrow path? Think about it. What actions can you take today to strengthen your faith and live according to these principles? Remember, some of this information is based on historical records and ecclesiastical traditions, not confirmed by the Bible, except in the case of John, James son of Zebedee, and Judas Iscariot, which are recorded in the Bible. Now, if you want to learn from the words that came directly from the mouth of our Master Jesus, click on the video that appears on the screen.